Hello, everyone. I'm Simon Ford of Ford's Gin. Martinis, gin and tonics, Negronis, great classic cocktails is what I'm about. But I also love to hear from great bartenders from around the world, which is why we've partnered with Beyond the Drink for this season. Cheers.
Well, you just heard from the man himself, Simon Ford, and we're glad this season of Beyond the Drink is once again brought to you by our friends at Ford's Gin. I'm Cappy, and in this series, we're going behind the bar. It's time to explore the journeys of the world's best bartenders, uncovering their passion, the latest gin trends, and of course, the social impact they make in their community. Beyond the Drink airs every other week, right here on Beyond the Plate. If you're new to the pod, welcome. If you've listened before, we're glad you're back. Let's go Beyond the Drink. Cheers. Today's guest is a bartender, and he owns 5 bars around the world, has a bottled cocktail line, a masterclass, is an author, won International Bartender of the Year at Tales of the Cocktail in 2015, World's Best Bar on the World's 50 Best Bar list in 2018, World's Most Influential Bar Personality on the Bar World 100 Drinks International in 2019, and there are easily over 20 more accolades that him, his bars, and his team have brought in. You can find more on him in the episode notes and follow him on Instagram at Mr. Lyan. That's MRLYAN. Please enjoy this episode as we go beyond the drink with Ryan Chediawarna, aka Mr. Lyan. Ryan, it's good to have you here.
Thanks, Cappy. Very, very excited to be able to catch up.
Awesome. Okay. I feel like we should start maybe where we would normally end a podcast. Now what? What's next, Ryan?
I've always been thankful that we've got lots of kind of different bits on the go. I mean, the kind of latest focus has been our newest bar is in New York, which has been a long time in the coming, and so much of it has been behind the scenes. It's also really nice that it's kind of one of I suppose, a string of things that we've tried to keep spinning whilst we're obviously maintaining the bars and doing all the projects that we're so proud of that exist kind of as a constant. But it's always been about trying to explore what else can we push, and not only things that excite us as teams, but what can we push that kind of engages wider sets of people within, kind of our guest sphere. How do we entice more people to look at the world of food and drink? And then of course for our peer group going, how do we demonstrate that the industry can be wide? There's so many different things that are going on, but one of the things that I've always loved about the Lyan projects is, of course, the work that we do in the bars, but it's trying to find ways of showing how kind of food and drink gets to interact or operate in kind of a really wide range of different spaces as well. So, of course, it's things from the kind of TV show that we launched earlier on in the year, but it's also collaborating with different spaces. Of course, places like other bars, other restaurants, nightclubs, that feels akin to our world, but even going, well, why can't we look at the drinks moment or just the act of hospitality in an airport or on a train or something like that? It's been really fun going big project focused on kind of New York as an opening, but kind of a few other things that we've been able to collaborate with some brilliant people on alongside it. So some bits, it's fun to have like a wide breadth of different projects on the go.
You seem like a big hospitality guy on top of all of your bar, cocktail, etc. projects. Is that right?
That to me is at the heart of it all. Like, I've loved the geekiness of being able to, even when I was a chef or being a bartender, being able to focus on kind of the professionalism of what we get to express as a craft. But to me, they were always secondary. The idea of the way of kind of using food and drink and the focus of what we try to do in our spaces is just to push that idea of how do we help people gather in more meaningful ways. And that's not a set formula. It's trying to treat people as individuals and really go, well, we got so many tools at our disposal to try and make those moments feel, special to people. And I love that sometimes that's grand gestures and it feels like a really amazing point. And the number of people that have walked out of our spaces and said, that's been the best night of my life, is so warm and lovely. But just on the other side as well, where you don't know what's going on in people's lives, but if you can see them like turn around their evening and have a smile on their face as they leave, or just have those little moments of kind of tenderness that feel like genuine hospitality, that to me is what's so magical about our world, and was what really motivated me to go, how do we look at this in as many ways as possible? Because that's an incredible thing to have out in the world.
All right, so let's go back a little bit. Tell everyone what you do.
I'm a bartender, but it's in that kind of wide definition of it. It is more about looking at this idea of how do we get to help people gather, but expanding that to go, of course, that needs to have an educational part, that needs to have a social part, it needs to have a innovative part to it. And it means that you get to look at the role of being a bartender and what that means in this kind of more like historical wide sense, rather than it is just about going, well, we put liquid in a glass. It's meant that I've been able to write things, I've been able to collaborate with people, and it might not seem like an obvious thing to go, well, we're going to work with a material scientist or a microbiologist or collaborate with a university or like a food council on something. And that's not about making things that are fancy, or it's not about having things that anybody else can do. It's just going, how can we bring our perspective and our expertise, which I think should, it's got so much value to it. The people that are in industry are so brilliant, so creative, and go, well, we need to be having those conversations. And it's great to be at the table with other types of expertise to push things that we think could be really cool for our world. And some of it's stuff that is like fun and delicious, and other parts are going, we need to be able to like consider the role of social spaces in our communities. And so being able to kind of talk with governmental bodies, non-governmental bodies about like that role, that to me is part of the bits that I'm like, that's all part of being a bartender. So what I do is varied. I always talk about the fact that I'm just there to kind of like enable things for our teams and be a facilitator of different opportunities and ideas. And that to me is, I have the best job in the world. It's great. I get to do some really amazing things with some truly remarkable people.
Can you share a little bit about how you got here?
I mentioned I was a chef beforehand. So I actually started in kitchens in my kind of hospitality career, and I trained as a chef. I worked in kitchens. I was really intrigued by, I suppose, understanding more of that world and the structures around it. And, I did that because I've been brought up to kind of, well, we could all cook from a young age. It was like a thing that my folks like made sure that we could do. We could look after ourselves. We could look after our friends and family. And, I think I really wanted to dive deeper into that. But I quickly realized that using food as a home cook was very different to being in a kitchen in a kind of professional sense. And I realized it missed the sense of connection that I missed. I loved the kind of structures and learning the kind of rigor of a professional kitchen, but I miss talking to people. Like I literally miss that interaction of going, well, what is it that you need today? Or I know your preferences, or I'm just excited to present this. And there wasn't that flexibility of kind of that particular moment and that interaction. So my oldest friend rather flippantly went, well, why don't you just go work in a bar then? And I kind of never looked back. And I instantly fell in love with the energy of being in a bar and behind the bar, and like what you get to, some of that's, you step forwards and you're an active role in it. Other times you step back and you get to kind of like help it all just happen. And I just thought that was incredible. I hadn't really encountered anything like that, even when I'd been cooking for people if they came around to my house as like a kid. There was nothing about it that kind of felt as special as being behind a bar. So I really took to that, and I wanted to learn as much as possible about it. So having started in a cocktail bar, I worked in chain places, I worked in nightclubs, fine dining, hotel bars, little independent cocktail bars. I always talk about the fact that whenever I travel, I've got to stop just wandering behind people's bars. I loved that as a kind of like a shift in perspective and going, all of these things teach us about different sides of hospitality. Having worked with and for people for a number of years, I did that for about 12 years or so, and then decided to try and see if there was something different that we could carve out from the space. I saw all these amazing bars, saw this side of the industry that wasn't being explored. And so with my sisters, we kind of like plumped together, scraped all the cash we could, like literally reaching down to the back of the sofa. My cousins were very weak to support on things, and we just cobbled it together and started the Lyan side from there. And went, well, how can we push all of the things that we can in this? And, we were very clear about putting people at the heart of it and innovation as kind of like a key pillar. With that, it put things like sustainability, it put things like working with other different types of industry, just kind of in the breadth of what we were trying to do. And we put this banner of saying we want to do good things. That was it. Like there's things that feel fun and kind of meaningful, but not fancy as such. It was going, how do we look at this world that was very traditionally luxury and go, well, this should be for everyone. How do we bring more people into this world? And so we kind of grew everything from there. And along the way, we had brilliant people as part of that journey. We, people that have been with us for 10 plus years on that kind of journey of going, we're excited to do things differently, and we're excited to see what we can learn and kind of fold into kind of like expanding and demonstrating, I think, that the hospitality career can be something you do for life. And it can feel like, as amazing as when you're a young bartender and you get bitten by it and you're like, this is cool, I get to make people happy, but also go, well, I get to have an impact and ownership over what I do. And, I can do this for decades rather than something you just do for, when you're young and you can kick that many hours.
Back then, what were the things specifically that you weren't seeing in the industry?
It was partly the people that would be in the spaces. And one of the main motivators was, I used to go to bars with my sisters. They were young, they were successful, they'd been traveling the world. They got enticed into this world because I'd make drinks with them. Like, this is delicious. Of course I want to try this. And I remember one point, we'd been discussing the fact that it was like, why is everything so serious? Why do you have to have a history lesson to be able to be part of this? You have to sit down, you have to listen to jazz. They all look a certain way. And there was one point where a bartender turned around to my sister after she ordered in Manhattan and went, oh, that's not for you, honey. And I was flabbergasted. I couldn't really understand that that's where we'd gotten to. Like, we'd been caring about our craft for so long and trying to get people to see it as a legitimate art. And then all of a sudden we were doing this thing that was restricting who was going to get to enjoy it. And that to me was such a powerful moment of going, well, if I looked around bars, you had to already be included into it. You had to be a cocktail geek. You had to have to come from a certain, I don't know, whatever it was. And it didn't demonstrate the breadth of people both behind the bar and in front of it, but also the styles of things that you could enjoy. There were so many rules. Some of those were incredible. Like, it was great to see the shift in quality that came. I grew up in the era of bartending where, your lime juice came powdered and there was so many things that were just terrible. And then seeing what Sasha, Dick, that set managed to usher in to go, we should care about our ingredients. We should respect some of the kind of formulae, these classics that can help us build up and understand drinks in this way. But it was also going, well, absolutely, we need those things, but why can't there be these drinks in a super fun venue? And of course there was some place that has done it, but it tended to divide it into, you either have fine cocktails and you have these very serious jazz establishments, or you have fun time places and you have these disco style drinks. And it was going, well, why can't it be more of these different types of places? Why can't we challenge the recipes and the formulae that we use? What about the ingredients that get to be used as part of the drinks? It frustrated me as a biology student, and I was looking at all of the different plant life and plus that was available to us, that we used such a small handful of ingredients. We used the same citrus fruits to acidulate, we use sugar to sweeten, the same types of bittering agents. And kind of when even just looking at those denominations of flavor, there is so much more out there in the world for us to explore. And, why are we, ice is an amazing material, but have we considered about the impact of what it does to texture and flavor? And are there other ways of doing things? It was just simply that question of going, why aren't we looking at other things? Like, it's great that we have this history to be able to borrow, and that's such an important thing to learn, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at other things alongside it.
Did I see somewhere that the first bar you ever opened, it didn't have ice or something like that?
We had no ice, no perishables, no citrus. We made everything ourselves, and it sounds really weird to say this, but we made our own water. And it was really a demonstration. It was a very digital way of making things, but it was going, why don't we control every element up? So we'll make our own water, our cordials, our distillates. We had our own spirits. We pre-bottled, pre-diluted everything so we could control temperature, the glass it got served in. Everything was not saying this is the best version, but it was going, look, here's our version of these drinks. It was partly that kind of professionalism of going, let's control our drinks in a manner where we can be ultra controlling of what they taste like, they open up like, the journey of the drink, the flavors, the profile, all of those things. But it also meant that we could serve drinks in under 10 seconds. Like, we had a very fun bar. We're in East London at a time where, there was a community around us that didn't feel welcomed into a lot of places. And, it was a bar that was designed to go, well, we can play really fun music. We played hip hop in a time when nobody would play hip hop in a bar. And we played disco and funk. We had great DJs. We had this wonderful connection to the LGBTQ community. We were able to throw parties and go, well, we can serve cocktails alongside this. Why don't you want to dance around with a highball? Like, that's a great thing to be able to have. And it was an exercise in really just demonstrating what else could happen in a cocktail bar. And because we didn't have any perishables, because we controlled anything, we didn't have a bin. Like, we didn't have a commercial bin. When we, Ian, who was a key part of the journey, and they have Bar Snack in New York. They called up the council, talked through what we were going to be throwing away, which was bottle caps and backpack bags at the time. We would have some recycling. We didn't have the same kind of bottle wastage because we were working direct with distilleries who would make our own spirits. So we do it on a container return system. And they turned around and went, well, that's not a commercial waste contract. Just got a domestic bag of waste, like just a little bag that we would just throw away, and that was it. Again, like, it wasn't there to be pokey. It was there just to go, look, why can't we explore what a bar could look like? And as I say, it was as much in the kind of drink side, which I think a lot of like bartenders focused on. But the thing that I really liked when people were, I suppose, hesitant, or they just wanted to like think that it was going to be a pretentious kind of space, everybody who came to the bar, there was actually a very famous food critic who came in and went, I wanted to hate this. And that was their line. And I was like, I couldn't understand why somebody chose to go out and think that. But they were like, these are the best drinks I've ever had, and this is really fun. And anybody who came to White Lyan, like, that was the enduring legacy of it. It was a really fun bar to be in. We had a pole in the basement and we threw some really great parties, and the drinks were delicious. Anybody who could get past their prejudice of it, the team we had were some of the most experienced in the world. This wasn't about like taking away the kind of craft of bartending. That's a lot of what a lot of people kind of accuse us of. It still had theatre. It still had this elegance and this kind of sense of real care into everything that we did, but we could just spend more time with the guest, understanding what they want to drink, rather than them getting that slight disorientation of seeing a back bar and not knowing what to order. Just connect people to drinks, and they would have these moments. And I loved it in White Lyan. You see people take a sip and they're like, this is extraordinary. Why does this taste like this? And it was us being able to go, well, this is the profile we wanted to hit. You talked about you needing this kind of mood. That's what we've done. And this is, if you want to know, we can talk you through all of the things that we've done for it, because we could control everything. We could set the profile we wanted, but we could just have that knowledge of what we've put together to help connect guests to the actual profile of the drink.
Hearing you talk and thinking about your chef background and like the science or biology background and how those play into the creation of a cocktail is like so cool.
We were really fortunate as well to have lots of, I suppose my background in that helped me look into some of the things that we could use, but it was mainly I was looking at it from novel ingredients, let's make sure we're being safe, and the scientific background was very helpful with that. But we started working with some food scientists who were just so brilliant. Actually, Dr. Johnny Drain was an old school friend of mine, and we went to school together, and we reconnected after he finished his PhD, and he was excited by looking at some of this world, and he helped us with what we dubbed our kind of time travel series. And then Ariel, who science director for Restaurant Noma, we'd worked together when I was at Whistling Shop, and she was she just still remains this. Ariel and I have been collaborating together for years. I think it's probably pushing 15, 16 kind of years of working together, and she was so good at being able to explain what was happening in a layman's way that meant that we could look at those goalposts and then ask what if. She was so forthcoming with her time. Can't stress enough how fortunate we are to have been able to have people like that who are so brilliant, who were just willing to also be curious with us and helped us develop things. And I think it was novel for them to see these kind of thoughts in the kind of drink sphere. That allowed us to, I can say fairly confidently, some of the stuff that we've done in the bars hasn't been done anywhere else in the world. And it was because we were able to kind of embrace that conversation with somebody who had a different knowledge set, and we were curious, they were curious, and we were able to create something wholly new as a result of that interaction. And I loved some of those moments we were able to do.
What inspires you?
Oh, everything. It's so wonderful seeing, partly, I think, different knowledge sets. I think that's always been a thing that, we've been trying forever to kind of let go of the boundaries of where we bias ourselves. So as much as I love that I've had a very kind of classical cocktail upbringing, being able to go, well, if I see what a very different, knowledge set, we've been traveling a huge amount. You go to different cultures, you see different ingredients, different applications, different thought processes. And that's not only on how they use their ingredients, it's how do you help people come together for different celebrations, different moments of commiseration, whatever it might be. And, I just find that an endless well of kind of inspiration. But a lot of the time it comes from out with our industry as well. It's seeing somebody apply a bit of lateral thinking to something, a different perspective. And I always think it's like we should be learning from every type of expertise, not just the ones that are parallel to the kind of core of what our industry is.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is there a cocktail or two you're particularly excited about these days?
I'm currently obsessed with one of the drinks at Lioness. It's a drink called the Unfiltered Martini, and it's a 2-ingredient drink. It's a take on a vodka martini. I think there are some people who kind of see the rigidity of that drink and think that the ways in which you can innovate it are like in ratios or in garnish or things like that, or ones that kind of stray too far away. I actually don't think like the whole like chicken broth martini thing is very delicious. If it ends up delicious, killer. I'm not against those things, but I think the ones that I've tried that have been more in the novel camp don't seem like a true innovation to me in that. But it's simply a barley vodka. It's an off-dry martini, and the second ingredient is potato, and it acts like a vermouth, but in the way that, to me, I love the kind of harmony between kind of gin botanicals and the botanicals in vermouth. I think that's where you get this incredible like springboard effect of kind of those two ingredients become so much more than the sum of their parts. With a vodka martini, to me, I sometimes find vermouth can clash, but the idea of playing up to the texture and the weight of the spirit is really exciting. And so we had this wonderful, rich, nutty kind of vodka from the Boatyard team. We ended up kind of playing off it with something that's like a very novel potato fermentation that kind of tastes like vanilla ice cream. It's got this kind of tropical fullness to it. The body, I have no idea where this comes from. I think, Ariel was going, I'll stick it through some GC and see whether it actually has kind of vanillin kind of formed as part of this kind of pathway, or whether it's just the perception of that because it's got this wonderful weight and kind of rich body to it that you end up finding that sweetness and that kind of creaminess. Your mind kind of projects vanilla onto it, but it's really beguiling as a drink. There's something about it that, it drinks like a martini. You have this wonderful focus and pause like you want to be able to have in that as a drink. The way that it kind of sticks on your palate is kind of incredible. So I'm really excited by it as a drink because I think it's a good demonstration of some of the stuff that we're excited to explore. But I think on the other side, some of the things that we get to do that bring it into different audiences. We've been working with a couple of restaurants, and it's trying to find ways of looking at that drink food sphere in a different way, or the work that we've done with the books and masterclass, and actually on the Taste Trip series, we, looking at ways in which we can go, you can include these at home, like they can be part of your everyday life. I'm not going to do a 50-stage fermentation or something like that in my house. Whereas the drinks that we've just launched a episode with Simon and the Ford's team that we're focused on kind of London as a destination, and the drink that's part of it, it's about telling the story of, I suppose, the place, London. What is it? How do you summarize that as something that is about this incredible diversity and this range of things? And gin's a beautiful analogy for everything that's going on within the episode of taking in different perspectives and different flavors and colors and language from around the world. And it's a drink that, we do a little bit of testing on. I sent it to friends and they made it at home, and they can do their own little take on it. And, they can customize it to their own palates, but it's something that doesn't feel scary to them. And I think that's a really exciting space of going, yes, cocktails are special and they do feel like this treat, but unlike, making sourdough that takes a couple of days and you have to get used to it and you might mess it up, like a cocktail can take you 15 minutes and you've got something delicious to be able to cheers with your pals on at the end. So I've kind of liked both these sides of what we get to explore at the moment. Some of the kind of weirder stuff that gets to challenge us and help us think differently on things, as well as the bits that help connect people more to our industry and kind of show that it doesn't need to be fancy. It could be something that everybody can get involved in.
Is there anything exciting to you these days in the world of gin or bartending in general?
Oh, huge amounts. I think this is it's a really lovely time because I think more people are getting excited by what's happening in our world. And, each time I travel to a new place, I always discover something new. Like there's never a time where I'm not taking something away from it. And, I'm really glad to see some of the new stuff that is happening across the industry. I do have concerns as well. Like I think there's, as much as this has been a beautiful time, I think there's also been a different amount of attention that's come to our industry as a result of it. And it was very self-governing for a long time. We were a small community and we got to make sure that everybody was doing doing things for the kind of right set of reasons. And that meant that there was a wider set of diversity as part of it. The expressions of the craft were pushing in lots of different directions. And I think there seems to be creeping in a rule about what is right. That's ended up going, doesn't matter if you're in like Bangkok or Berlin or Bogota, you're seeing the same types of drinks appear. And that to me is a concern, because you surely want to express your own take on these things. Like, that's what's exciting. And I want to try different flavors I'm going to stick with my alliteration of the B cities there. Like, Bogota to Berlin needs to taste different, right? And I'm hopeful that we don't get lost to, some of the kind of shininess that pushes a bit of like homogeneity across stuff, and we lose all of that kind of sense of identity to each place, because there is this thing of going, okay, to be a fine crafted cocktail, it's got to be, this clarified drink on block ice with the same kind of garnish.
Comparing that to the culinary world, I often give this example just because I feel like it's a low-hanging fruit example, if you will, of you can often tell when a cook or chef worked at a Jean-Georges restaurant, like given flavor combos and techniques and whatnot. And it's not wrong. I mean, don't like put the same dish, you were making at ABC Kitchen on the menu at your restaurant in Chicago or San Francisco. But technique-wise, I mentioned to you earlier, we talked to Dave Arnold earlier on this season, who's, a big technique guy, science-y at the end of the day. But it's interesting too in the cocktail world, to your point. Do you want to see a drink that's being made in New York and then fly to Peru and, you're seeing the same exact thing? You kind of want to see a drink a little more native to Peru, whether it's an ingredient-driven thing.
Totally. And it's nice that we're able to share information in a wider sense now. And part of that, and Dave's been a massive inspiration, both for me as a young bartender, but you see, particularly after he released Liquid Intelligence, that as a way of helping bartenders unlock new techniques, new ways of exploring their ingredients. There's definitely going to be a point where you see that curiosity and that influence. And if you worked in a great place, you might carry some of those bits with you. But there's that like phase where you're like applying that in a very straightforward way. And then that kind of more exciting phase where you go, oh, now I can do this with this information. I think the the thing that we need to celebrate is when people are in that like latter phase and going, cool, now I'm doing my own expression through these things. And I think that's where we can self-govern and make sure the industry is getting excited by things, rather than just seeing a roundup of the kind of very similar style kind of applications and output of stuff. Again, not to take away from the fact that it's not the experience and all the magic around it that becomes the special part, but the actual content should vary as well.
Man, that could be a really long panel discussion. I'm sure it already is, but could be in and of itself.
Totally.
All right. I mentioned social impact and giving back, and our Beyond the Plate listeners know that our podcast celebrates social impact with all of our guests. And it's really no different than the bartenders we talk with as well. And learning how you all do it really keeps us inspired. And I always love learning about a cause or a charity or a project or whatever it is that y'all are up to. So I'd love to give you a moment to shed some light on a cause or organization that you may want to raise awareness for.
Absolutely. I mean, I think within our work, that idea of good things has always pushed us to try and go, how can we philosophically or as a demonstration encourage people to think about where there can be kind of impact? And from the sustainability side, from some of the kind of conversations from a social impact of the industry, I'm really proud and really keen for us to keep pushing those. But at the same time, there's certain ones where you, from a philosophical point of view, and also from a kind of like a bit of self-meaning to all those things, you need to see impact as well. And I was very proud to join the board of Action Against Hunger. And I think the reason I was so excited by that was the breadth of the impact that it has. And as a charity, it gets to do some amazing things, but it really demonstrates, I suppose, what's core. And it was incredible. I spent some time when I was in Copenhagen, there was an extension of the work that Jose Andres has been doing with, and like looking at this idea of longer tables. And again, the impact of care with World Kitchen, all the things that they've been able to do, it feels really akin to that. And with Action Against Hunger, not only taking care of that kind of fundamental human need and being able to, well, just nurture people and really show that once you take care of that part, everything cascades in the most amazing way. But I think the part to me that's been really special is just demonstrating that people care. And I think people care, people want to help. And if you can show that, it's such a fundamental kind of restoration of humanity to people in like moments of crisis and moments of turmoil, just being able to give them that dignity kind of aspect of it as well. So I think it's an incredible project, and I'm incredibly proud to be like helping wherever I can with that impact of that as a charity. And sometimes you kind of want people just to, you get frustrated at kind of governments and big political decisions. You just want them to be able to see some of these impacts and hopefully demonstrate that, just have this little bit of kind of care around things, and so much of the world starts to feel more positive in the face of some of these very tough things.
Do you do much in the food waste space at all? I feel like we talked a little bit about it.
Absolutely. And I think, in the idea of like sustainability in a material sense, it was really interesting to see how our focus in that as a topic shifted when we started working with Doug. So Douglas McMaster, who is the chef owner of Silo in London and author of a Zero Waste Blueprint, teaches at Mad Academy on the idea of kind of zero waste, but really from a philosophical point of view again. That was the big thing for us. Well, the reason why we partnered with Doug when we opened our restaurant was, we realized with White Lyan, we weren't having any kind of material waste, but we didn't know what was happening up and downstream from us. And kind of being able to work with Doug and look at it in such a kind of holistic manner was incredible. And again, still trying to support where we can on that, but we've also been trying to have conversations with bigger bodies to go, of course, we need to be able to support charities that food is such a kind of powerful part of not only kind of social change, but also kind of material change in a lot of the kind of crucial food chains that don't just support people's kind of nourishment, but agriculture and economics in a kind of wider sense. But it's also going, we are a big part of that, but we are a bigger part in a influence sense. So if we can get people to, we're almost the fashion part of it. If we can change opinions around things, people's habits change, and there can be much more of a kind of wider impact. And particularly around, it is not restaurants and bars that are causing the majority of waste in the world. It's bigger manufacturing. And so if we can demonstrate there is a care around these things, we're able to speak to people at the UN Food Council and go, this is an important thing for governments to recognize and start to step in on. It's not just about putting the onus on the individual or an industry like us. We're the transformation part. We're not the bit that is able to affect the whole chain of things, but we are the bit that can help educate and connect the guest and the consumer to it. We need to be, again, in the room for these conversations, because chefs and bartenders have the ability to not only lend expertise, but also be the conduit for better practice. And that's both upstream and downstream from us. So I think it's such an important space for that. And that's an area we're still very passionate about being able to push and make sure that we can be heard more in.
That's fantastic. Love that. All right, Ryan. So we have an audio newsletter we do every other Monday here on this platform. It's called Heard, and I share a few things on my plate at the moment. It could be a recent restaurant that I ate at, a product or ingredient that I'm into or want to try, a recipe, something social impact related. I'd love to learn one thing on your plate that we can feature in a forthcoming episode of Heard.
I'm going to shout out 2 books that were released recently that actually speak to the 2 people I mentioned before. And one is Dr. Johnny Drain's book, Adventures in Fermentation, and Dr. Ariel Johnson's book, Flavor Armor. And the reason why I'm so passionate about that, of course, I'm biased. They are part of the extended family, and I think they are some of the most kind of remarkable brains in the business. But it's the fact that they're such accomplished books for not just the ultra geeks. They manage, if you're looking at kind of transformation of kind of your ingredients and managing waste and everything from how do you set up and include some of these things into your world, Johnny's book is just so great. And there was one bit that he helped us with when, we were first kind of looking into things like some of the lacto fermentations, and we were going, how can we get some of these tropical flavors from more native ingredients? And we talked through the principles of lacto fermentation, and we were like, we don't need that much salt. That's not going to actually be a beneficial thing for us. And so he came up with this beautiful, simple technique of going, just buy lactobacillus tablets then. And I'm now seeing this kind of around the world, and it is such a beautiful demonstration of just that little bit of insight and problem solving, unlocking so much. It now meant that we didn't have to have salty fermentations. We could have things that fit better in a kind of drink sphere of things. It's such a beautiful little, again, I love those ideas that it's not revolutionary. It is revolutionary, it absolutely is, but it's not like Johnny took something that nobody else could have. He just applied his expertise in a way that solved a problem and unlocked for what I hope is for swathes of bartenders and chefs and anybody working in flavor around the world to be able to unlock a whole new set of flavors. And the book's packed with with some of those lovely little tidbits. And Ariel's book is, to me, it's the modern tome. It's the version of, we grew up with Harold McGee's On Food and Cooking, an incredible book. It's, again, still 40 plus years later, one of the most important books. But that's a dense book, right? Like, to be able to dive into that, you need to be able to be a geek of a certain inclination. Ariel's book is so accessible. It carries that mantle, but it allows you to think on flavor and what is happening in kind of new ways. And again, it's helping you understand the goalposts to help unlock what you can do with all of that information. And I think it's just such a brilliant book for, if you care about flavor, I mean, the clue's in the title, right? You don't need to be someone who's going, I'm going to apply science to my food or my baking or my coffee or my cocktails. If you are just interested in flavor, it's a book to help you understand the joys of life in that kind of wonderful way, because the more that we understand flavor, the more that we can connect to it. And it's part of everybody's life. So I think they're must-haves for me in terms of books.
Those are great. I can't wait to feature those.
Totally. And I think they're two of the people that you probably don't know have been instrumental behind some of your favorite bars and restaurants. They're the kind of, chef and bartender's favorite friend for going, how can I transform things in a new magical way? And they're so generous with their time, and I can't be grateful enough for all they've been able to do for the company. And, they've become dear friends of people, all of our team members in the bars. And, I think on kind of personal levels, it's so nice to be able to connect with people that are, so brilliant. And yeah, it's just the fact that they're lovely as well, alongside being really excellent at what they do.
Yeah, so cool. Awesome. Well, Ryan, I appreciate this. I've loved connecting with you all and just learning more from you all and what you are up to and what inspires you. And can you share with everyone where they can find you?
Of course. The best way to connect to me and what we do across the bars is probably by Instagram on Mr. Lyan, at Mr. Lyan. And, it has links to Mr. Lyan's taste strips there, where actually for those of you in the States, it's on Reach TV, but you can watch any of the episodes on YouTube for free as well. And there's connections to each of the bars, obviously New York now, DC, Amsterdam, and the 2 in London, as well as, I think the thing that always will remain central to what we love doing is collaboration. So there's always a few new things that we have on the go, and either it's the teams working with some other people or more central parts of the brand where we're trying to collaborate and create something new. So that's where we'll post about some of those different bits of the work that we get to do across the company.
Love it. Thank you so much, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
It's been so fun to chat. Thank you.
Find all social media links for myself, Beyond the Plate, and Beyond the Drink guests in the episode notes and on beyondtheplatepodcast.com. As always, big thanks to the whole Beyond the Plate team. Don't forget to join us back here next Wednesday for an episode of Beyond the Plate, and every other Monday right here for Herd, our short audio newsletter where I'm sharing what's on my plate, from culinary insights to restaurants and recipes, all in just a few minutes. And if you have a moment, we'd be grateful for your support by rating, reviewing, and even hitting that subscribe button to the podcast. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Drink, a production of Beyond the Plate. I'm Cappy.